As U.S. forces are poised for a possible military strike on Syria, Washington's key ally has withdrawn its support. British lawmakers have defeated a motion by David Cameron's government, effectively ruling out the country's involvement in any assault. Intervention was rejected by a margin of 13 votes, with 30 members of Cameron's own party turning against him. Parliament refuses to sanction British involvement in Syria, even if UN inspectors conclude that Damascus was indeed responsible for the use of chemical weapons earlier in August, an attack that reportedly killed hundreds of civilians. In the eyes of lawmakers, Cameron was unable to make a sufficiently convincing case against Assad. When pressed by MPs to explain why the Syrian regime could possibly want to provoke a foreign action, the Premier admitted that British intelligence could not pinpoint a motive. Cameron then urged lawmakers to make their own judgment against Assad and act on their own convictions. That didn't win over Parliament, creating an embarrassing situation for Downing Street. Let's cross live now to Sarah Firth in London for the details. Sarah, so politically, this doesn't look good for David Cameron, does it?
No, defeated and humiliated. That's how the Prime Minister is being portrayed today after that major political blow with Parliament voting against military action. It means that the Prime Minister's decision essentially to recall Parliament, to bring this motion against possible military action in Syria has backfired spectacularly. Many of the Prime Minister's own party members turning against him. Labour today calling his leadership reckless and cavalier. It's not going to sit comfortably with the Prime Minister. This issue of foreign policy, and it was a major issue that he really stamped his name upon, is one that the Prime Minister of the country usually leads on. And you heard when the results of that vote was announced last night in the House of Commons, those cries for the Prime Minister to resign. Now, questions over whether his leadership is really going to be under threat. It's thought that's quite unlikely at this point, but certainly he stands in a much weakened position today. And as we said, that defeat really not putting him in a comfortable position at all.
How big of a blow is all of this for Washington's case for war in Syria?
Well, look, party politics aside, and many MPs have been very eager to make this point today, is that this was really about what was best for Syrian interests, what would be best for Syria, and very many people feeling that the vote reflected the lack of public appetite for any military action, certainly with the evidence that was on the table. Of course, all eyes will now be on the US and what course of action they'll take. They've lost a major ally in Britain voting against military action. The indicators coming from the US is that they'll be willing, regardless, to go it alone. In terms of a timeline, you've got the UN inspectors coming out the country on Saturday and presenting their preliminary findings. Everyone going to be looking very closely at that. Of course, they're not expected to make any assertions as to who's to blame, but it is thought that they'll be presenting some form of narrative based on the evidence they've collected. So all eyes will be closely on that, and then the actions that follow. But as we said, certainly the Prime Minister today here, both internationally and here at home, standing a little less tall today, I think.
Sarah Firth there giving us reactions and an update on the Syrian reaction there from London.